Hello, welcome to the webinar Realign Your Business to Your Future Perspective. The second workshop webinar in the series of three. Yesterday we started with maximizing your influence in business, at home, and in society. It was a pleasure to run that with my good friend Ben Street. And this webinar is about realigning your business to your future perspective. And at the end, I will give you more information about the upcoming, which is tomorrow, same time as today, where we're going to talk about how to use Lego for creative thinking. All three webinars, trainings, workshops are part of the Accelerate Your Future Challenge, which we are running from Monday onwards, a 5-day challenge to accelerate your future. And today, I really focus a little bit more than usual on owner managers, leaders, professionals that are running a business or involved in overseeing a business. So don't feel left out if you're not entrepreneur. It definitely has to do with it, because actually I think it has to do with all three core roles in life, which is ownership, entrepreneurship, and leadership. And entrepreneurship is not only for those that run their own business and own their own business. Now, entrepreneurship is just a general role in life about carrying risk so that others can strive on top of it. So the first three questions that I want to ask are actually based on these ownership, entrepreneurship, and leadership perspectives. And the first one is like, do you put personal development on your list as priority number one? Sounds maybe rude, but if learning is not part of your normal lifestyle, then you could end up being someone that controls those around them not to be outperformed yourself. So to stay ahead of everyone that's learning, you have to stay in that place as well of learning. Second one is, do you frequently, preferably annually, update, refresh your future perspective? We all know the future is emerging, it comes our way. So every time we refresh it, we just create a learning arch ahead of us so that we can anticipate for the next few things that are coming. And the last one is quite important for those that are running or owning a business is, do you see your business as the vehicle to get you to the future? Or are you still in the perspective of building a legacy, uh, or your baby? Like there are so many people out there who see it as their baby. That, but actually, when you start seeing the business as a vehicle to get to the future, it gets a purpose in itself. So, just starting with these questions, when we talk about futurizing and strategizing, we actually have these two competing elements. The one is our future perspective, which could be about our dreams and our foresight and all our skills. And the other one is the present challenge we have, or customer challenge we try to solve. And they compete, which actually creates really a lot of tension. Like we look at our present challenges mostly by business model practices. But if we only look to those approaches which are amazing with the canvases, we could set ourselves up for failure. Because when the external factor in our business model, which is the customer with its needs, changes their need, everything could fall apart like a house of cards. At the other hand, if we only focus on our future perspective, where's the cash coming from to pay the bills? So it is a paradox. A paradox which, with healthy leadership, should not lead to making a choice. We should not make a choice between one above the other. Actually, we should develop good leadership, healthy leadership skills as a key to unlock the paradox and see the paradox as an invitation to grow, to have a breakthrough. And I always compare it like when we just do the classical managerial approach of I have two options with all the pluses and the minuses, then I am always biased for one for the other. But when I choose one option above the other option, I throw away all the good things of the other option. And actually, through self-talk, I try to ignore all the minuses that stick to the chosen option. What if we could create an option, a third option that has all the pluses and solves all the minuses of the two options? Then we actually solve the paradox. And a paradox is actually a mental blockage, because with our perspective, we think that those two things don't go together. But it's just a matter of lifting up, getting after a higher perspective and solve it. And we need to solve it, because if we can solve it, then we could start seeing our business not as distraction from having our hobbies, our dreams, our future perspective, our calling, our understanding of purpose, but actually it becomes the main tool. And that will help us to find synergy between our occupations and life. Like as an entrepreneur, going to the doctor because you're tired and then coming back with that you have to work on your work life balance, that is not fruitful, to say it nice, because you don't need a balance between work and life. You need to get a life that includes the work, that includes everything you do, and includes your role in society. You want synergy. So the paradox needs to be solved. Before I tell you where that leads to, I want to go into that future perspective. And what I give you is a really like a 30,000 feet overview of this unique process of futurizing that I use to equip leaders, owners, professionals to futurize for themselves, and which I use as a basis for businesses to start building a strategy on top of the future perspective instead of a vision. And we could have a long debate the difference between a vision and a future perspective. And I just don't want to go into that debate. Actually, I want you to understand that a future perspective is that perspective you have when you are in the future and you look around you, and that you can use for backcasting instead of a vision that potentially could be seen from today's perspective. So, having those two tensions, the status quo is what we don't want to restore. The status quo is not where we want to go back to. Like, we hear it over and over everywhere around still. We want to go back to normal. I'm sorry. Everything that is behind that is the past. The time is a constant. We cannot control time. We can only spend it well, which means that we need to go to the next status quo. And I tend to call that future quo, which is actually the whole overarching idea of futurizing. So when we first go to the future perspective as that starting point, that foundation for backcasting, next week in the challenge, I take you step by step through these phases. First, we shift our paradigm 180 degrees, that we are from walking backwards to the future, are turning to walking face forwards, confronting the future so that we can see it coming, which is seeing and see yourself from the future. Second steps is, what are your desired future realities, your future choices? Like, what are the roles you're going to fulfill in the future? And then the last step before the future perspective is actually, what is your preferred future when everything is possible and we have already climbed out of the box and left the box behind of our mental constraints? Then we get to our future perspective, which is the foundation for our future identity. Like, those who are around me know that I always go after the next version of myself. And I don't want to spend too much time in finding out the best version of myself. The easy reason explained is actually, the best version of myself really polishes where I am today. And I have no guarantee that all the investments in myself are worth it, because I don't know if they're part of my future. What if I put all that energy in developing the competences that are part of my next version? Then at least I invest in my future. So I frame it out of my future perspective instead of that I frame it out of my present perspective. That's a bit the difference, easy said, and that could backcast to future quo. Well, going back to realigning our businesses to our perspective, our future perspective, when we can solve that paradox, and I know we can, and sometimes it's hard and long work, but we can, with the use of the right creative and strategic tools and the help of our peers, what we talked about yesterday, we can solve the paradox that actually leads to a unique value promise. Not to confuse with a unique value promise. Then I say twice the same thing. With um, value proposition. That's the word I was looking for. It is a promise. You paint a picture of the future. You put everything into to go to. If that is appealing to your customers, then they want to travel with you. So just make the black and white comparison. You have a customer that pays you really well, but they don't want you to change. And you have a few customers that pay you average, but want to go to the future you want to go. So actually, they want to invest in you by paying for your current services and products. The last one really helps you to move on, while the first one could be your biggest obstacle soon, because it sabotages your whole development and your whole journey towards the future. It keeps you in the now, which from a millisecond ahead of us becomes your past. So don't get stuck in that your, I would say, cash cows are connected to your past, because that means that you stay in your past. The next step, when we know our unique value promise, we could start to attract what I call the future persona. It's a play on words with buyer persona. They definitely have to do something with each other. I think it's a paradox in itself, but it's about the future persona. So it's not based on the need you can address, but it's based on where you want to go and where you want to have your unique value promise focused on. So, and here I just draw the two, actually the new paradox. The paradox between my buyer persona, which is a forecasting technique out of my status quo, versus the backcasting technique that I backcast my future persona out of the context of my future identity as a leader, but just see the business as your vehicle and as an extension of your personal identity. I know that works to a certain size of businesses. I know that has to do also with the age and the development stage. So the moment ownership goes to shareholders that have no interest in the purpose, but only look to the increased amount of money connected to the stocks, then you get a whole new dynamics. Now, I talk about businesses that are maybe still small or medium size, but where the ownership is connected to people that really also own the purpose of the business. That could be like next generation family businesses or startups, but those people that really, those that lead also own the business. So this is a paradox. And again, a paradox should not lead to choose one above the other. No, you have to solve the paradox. Well, to solve the paradox, I just want to draw the field in which you are putting all your, I would say, all your sales marketing, all your branding activities, all the social media, all the outward going actions. Actually, I will call it sowing. And I really believe that when you sow well, you could have a good harvest, so you can reap well. In this context, I talk about the customer and the not yet customer because I believe in the transformational power of all your endeavors of sowing. And actually, when we talk about the customer, we could also talk about the consumer and the client. It's a definition of words, but they need a different approach. They have a different need, and they also give back something different. So when we have these four corners of your playground, your acre in which you are sowing, we could talk about the differences. So a consumer is the one that just buys products, not interested in your story, not interested in your future. They just buy products. The customer is the one who buys a service. They want to know the story, they want to have the full package. And then the client is the partnership where we start working together. Like we tend to talk a lot about co creation and all the other co versions. But actually, co creation is not happening with the customer. We talk about customer intimacy, which is really weird because we need to have a level of loyalty. And if you look critical to customer intimacy, actually, it's a one party perspective. It's not two ways. So you could say, is it already a customer? Maybe it's a consumer. So a consumer is a one way of your product. A service, there is two way. And a client, you could say, is a three way partnership because you also start to create something together. It is actually could be new products, but actually it's the future. You create the future together. So they all four need a different message. This is my biggest pitfall. I want to share everything with you. So I would always come from a message that is out of grid, out of paradigm, always too much. It comes from a good heart, but actually I'm overflowing and I need to do some segmentation in it. So if you're not yet a customer, I should give you a simple message that fits your paradigm. When you are interested in my product, I can just tell you the complicated context in which the project functions. If you want to have a service and want to understand where I come from, you get the complicated or the complex message, which is actually about everything is connected to everything. And then when we get into partnership, I can just share you everything that I sense but don't understand yet, so that we can co-create understanding products, knowledge, learning in that perspective. Well, just to give you an example, I apply them to explain the rest of these fields. So the simple message is that a consumer is just a transactional connection. No emotions connect. I would hardly say it's really, you can call it a relation. It's a bit how I order at Amazon and all the other. If Amazon because it's the fastest, it's the cheapest. It's not based on any loyalty or trust. I just compare things. The customer is a short term engagement. This is what you normally have with long term projects when you are into consulting. And then we have the long term partnerships, which is a long term relationship where we have an emotional connection with each other and we really go for a win win together, even if that means that one of the parties has to be really patient to see the return of all the investments we do. The complicated message would be we add the emotions. And then I'm saying this is the complicated version of the explaining the model. So complicated message is like that the consumer only compares. That's really nearly without emotions. Well, the customer, it's based on trust. They trust that you deliver. And the other one is loyalty. They that goes beyond trust because actually they know they will benefit by being patient. And they know that it's good to be around you. So, and they know, or actually, I would say different, they are also interested in the benefit for you. So they go for winning, but not at the expense of you. They go for winning together, and then the sum is more than the parts. Complex message in this example would be mindsets. A not yet consumer has a full on critical mindset. If you tell them something that's outside of their grid, so they have no box to call in the box, out of the box perspective. If they don't have a box to place it, if they can't categorize what you tell and immediately after they felt what you said, then they probably also have missed your message. The consumer feels it and wants to just have an experience with your product. So they do actually there it's analytical thinking they apply. Well, if you would be really like, and now you're transferring to the inner circle of me, so I can share you the novelty message, and this is like really becomes beyond being complex. Now we with the customer we talk about strategic mindset. Actually, because they trust you, they do not need to understand. They just trust. Based on trust, they start investigating what your service and product does for their business. So they know it solves their problem, but they want to investigate if it goes beyond solving their problem, if it helps them to create their future, if it helps them to extend their business, if there are more hidden gemstones behind the ordinary out of the box usage of your product. So they start to investigate, and we call that they start to probe. And while they're doing the investigating, they develop a sense of the added value of what you deliver. And then the novelty, well, now I can use the word chaos. Like, as a futurist and a strategist, I always say chaos is the most valuable space to be because that's where the new things are born. Ordinary language talks about chaos, but actually means disorder. I don't mean disorder, I actually mean unordered. The area where we start to find out and explore new solutions, ideas, the full creative space. So I call it a novelty message. Actually, it triggers your client to go with you. I would nearly say holding hands with each other, and you really go after something before you sense it. So there is action towards the future, and then you slowly start to sense and understand and respond. That's something that's quite intense. That's not something you are going to do with 20% of your portfolio. I rather think this is like the 1 or 2% of your portfolio, which, but then I also count in that 80% of your portfolio is your not yet consumer. Because what if your endeavors in reaching them with a simple message makes them interested and really transforms them to a one time purchase consumer. And what if you can find in that few percent that does it, even a smaller portion of those who want to stay with you? Then it becomes like this pipeline, not of next projects, but a pipeline of growth, a pipeline of increasing impact and influence. Well, that top corner of your field, that's where your future persona is. And the questions of the buyer persona, I just skip. I hope you know them. If not, just text me, send me a direct message, and I'll help you. But like I said, it's a paradox. So it's not about, those questions are not relevant. Like, what is the need? What is the usage of your problem? What's the normal way of working? Like all those kind of questions. They're really relevant. They're not less relevant after what I introduced to you. They're equally relevant. But with the paradox and the solution of the paradox of the future persona, and those questions are, what do you want, or who do you want to work with? What shared future to pursue? How do you learn together? How do you want them to invest in you? And of course, in return, how do you fulfill their expectations? Those questions, if you can answer those around those people, those buyers that are loyal to you and resonate with your unique value promise, you could find those people that want to jump into your vehicle. So when you see your business as your vehicle to get to the future, your clients with a long-term relationship actually become your passengers. They want to sit in your vehicle. And if you have a small business, it could just be a normal family-sized vehicle. If you have a big company, maybe you need more than a minivan. So, but it is a select group, it's an inner circle, because it's based on loyalty and it's based on shared future. What if one of those is your biggest sponsor? Well, I think then you've found your navigator to get into the future. That will really help to know, out of your long-term relationship clients, which one is your, and let's call that, for sake of the presentation, the future persona that should sit next to you and be your navigator. That's all we actually need to get to that future and use our business to get there. So it starts with your own future perspective and solving the paradox, all the way to your unique value promise. In that development, you will develop new language. The words that you need are not yet invented, or the context. It's not just the words. You still will speak English or your native language, but that's the words. The language you create is new. It gives a new expression of value. It is really important that you develop that language, because with that language, you can explain your unique value promise. And actually, it will only resonate when the other person recognizes that this is language from the future. The same goes with the message to your future persona. That will be an ongoing development of new language. It's finding new words. It's finding new ways to express what you sense. And those who are involved in futurizing, invention, innovation, know the experience, that you want to rephrase it and rephrase it and rephrase it, because the words are good but not right. That process of finding new language that gives expression and understanding, I would say interpretation of the future, of the revelation that you're after. That is future language. And future language, I think the whole purpose of learning is language development. The whole purpose of problem solving is language development. And the whole purpose of futurizing is language development. Because with our words, we create the future. That makes it really important that we change the conversation. If we keep expressing ourselves in language from yesterday, then actually we will just repeat the past. If that's applicable, then it's right. If it's not applicable, it is a big distraction. Speaking today's language will create comfort. It confirms the present. That's good when you've put something under quality control. That's good if you have something that's predictable. But a lot of things in leadership, ownership, and entrepreneurship is unpredictable. So, language of today is not applicable when it's unpredictable. Same way it goes the other way around. So, that's actually quite black and white. When you talk about today, you should not talk about future language. Like future language is language that is not yet manifested, it has not yet demonstrated. It is based on your senses, it's not based on your understanding. Maybe that's totally new for you, and maybe you're used to it. But when you talk about things you sense and not yet hear, then you know what I'm talking. If you are aware that you are gifted with foresight, which I believe everyone is, but we have to take the invitation to develop the competence. Then, if you have been putting effort in that, then you know that there is some new language bubbling up on the inside, and you have to do this external processing. You have to verbalize it with your peers because all other people get lost and get confused or even angry at you. If you are in that understanding your new paradigm, then you know what I'm talking. And I believe everyone has an experience like that. We all have an experience that we sense the future. Sometimes we just think of someone and then that person calls, or we meet that person around the corner. And that's not a coincidence. Now you sense that person, you sense that event. That's where our dreaming comes in. So, and dreaming, you could say, yeah, come on, dreaming. Yeah, but what do you think about ideation? Ideation and dreaming are not that far off. They're both part of innovation, and you need both, including the imagination. And if you shut down rabbit trails in your thinking, then you still stay with the old. So we need to have all three, and all three are valid when applied well. So for creating the future, we need to find language that's not yet fulfilled, so that our words create new belief systems in our mental system, which will lead to new behavior, which will lead to new actions, which will lead to new results, which means you made a step towards the future. So, all these things, I just want to give you as a illustration of that your business is actually your most valuable asset. See it as a vehicle and start using it to get to your future, which is a paradox because your business is also the meaningful place for all the people you work with, because it's the place where they flourish. So you need healthy leadership. You need to keep learning. You need to get self development as priority number one to make sure that you're not ignoring the paradox and make a biased decision, an easy way out, a best practice from the past. Now, it's about leadership. So that means that you have to solve the paradox. And if you're not owning a business, but you are owning your own life, the same goes for you. So, what I'm offering next week is a 5-day challenge where I will help you to get access to this unique process of futurizing. It's no longer hidden for just the happy few who do it by n- nature. Now, it's about developing a competence. So if some would think, I've already done that challenge, then redo it, refresh it. That was bullet point number 2. Refresh it annually or 6 months. If you're a student, redefine your horizon. If you are an adult, redefine your horizon. It gives you happiness, it gives you flow, it gives you a focus point and a clarity. That helps you to get away from forecasting goals or New Year's resolutions out of the ordinary, out of fixing the status quo, and gets you to start creating your future quo. You deserve it. Just bring your courage to the table and use this opportunity for the challenge. So, if you want to join the challenge, just use the link thefuturechallenge.com. It has been on the bottom of the screen, just below the whiteboard. Just use that link and sign up. On the last slide, and that will take me out of the occasion. So on the last slide, I will just put you the date for the challenge, which is Monday to Friday next week. And we also have another webinar coming up tomorrow. And the only thing you need to do is to uh, use the registration option on LinkedIn or Facebook. Just go to the company site Business Revivalists, or go to the on my profile. You will see it because I've shared it. Same goes for Facebook. Just find me or find Business Revivalists on Facebook, and you will see the link for the event tomorrow, which is a 1 hour training how to use Lego for creative thinking. Actually, it takes you through this process of revealing something new to yourself, interpret it, and develop new language, and immediately create an action out of it so that you can start applying it and start moving towards the future. So thank you for watching. Just give me your feedback through YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Just give me the feedback and I will definitely answer your questions, um, or just send me a direct message. So thanks for your time. Looking forward to meet you tomorrow in the training and experience of creative thinking. Just make sure you grab some Lego bricks, borrow them from your kids, your neighbor's kids. Just make sure that you promise to bring them back. And else, just use the link, thefuturechallenge.com, to sign up for the most valuable challenge you could do this year: accelerate your future, starting next Monday. Well, thank you for your time. Bye bye.